Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Monday, March 8th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 178 days, the game against Michigan in 264 days, and Ohio State will kick off its spring football practice in just 11 days. The men's basketball team will tip off its Big Ten tournament run on Thursday. They will be the number 5 seed, and if they win on Thursday, then we will get another crack at beating Purdue on Friday. That is still quite a tumble from where they were in the projected bracket about 10 days ago, but that will happen when you're on a 4-game losing streak. So my guest this morning is Buckeye Scoop's Matt Goldman. And Matt, exactly how concerned should Ohio State fans be right now about this team?
I don't think there's as much concern as should make it out to be. We just played some heavy competition at the end of the season. People are forgetting that the Big Ten is, in my opinion, the most talented conference in the country. They played a Michigan State team who's on the uprise right now, an Iowa and Illinois team who look phenomenal, and then Michigan, who is arguably the best team in the country. So I think the Buckeyes, that they should have won at least one out of the 4 games. That would have been nice to see, especially maybe on senior day yesterday where it was close, where Michigan was very close, or Michigan State even. I think Ohio State fans should be concerned at the fact that maybe the shot discipline isn't there and the shots aren't falling at the moment for Ohio State. You look at the box score, and the box score looks really good, but sometimes the shots that you need to fall aren't going in for Ohio State. And I think that's the cause of concern right now is the offense, but also at the same time the defense. So I guess I'm kind of biting my tongue right there by saying offense and defense has to step it up these next few weeks. But I really am looking forward to facing Purdue again because I think that's the ultimate test for Ohio State. And that's going to be – and if Ohio State does not get the luck that they end up having against Purdue, then there's more cause of concern. At the moment, not so concerned just because of the depth of the Big Ten and the competition level.
Yeah, and at the end of last weekend, if they looked pretty flat against Iowa, I kind of wrote the whole thing off as just a result of them maybe being gassed after a really tough stretch because they had, Michigan State, Iowa, 3 games in, 6 days or whatever it was. And then, but, they came back after close to a week off. And then, they had some of the same issues with shot selection and shots not falling and not being able to close teams out. So, if it isn't tired legs, like what is the issue there? Because I was all ready to say it's tired legs, and then they came out, they come out looking great against Illinois, and then they didn't really do that. So, what exactly is the issue to you?
Well, when you look at the box score, I think 3 of the 5 starters had 10 plus points, actually 15 plus points. It was EJ, Justice, and that was Dwayne. So the box score looked pretty good, but I would think fouls, honestly, is where I'd go, especially, yes, the officiating, we could say some people did not love the way it was going towards the game. It was pretty heavy whistles at the end. But Ohio State, I just think the communication out there did not look great, especially you could see like guys were frustrated on the floor. Dwayne was looking all around for help, defense at times. I just think the fact that Coach Holtmann hasn't really communicate with his players what's going on. It looks like after timeouts, they're just kind of doing the same thing all over again. It looks like nothing's been fixed within those 4 minutes after the media timeout. So it kind of boggles my mind to see that is it Coach Holtmann and the coaching staff doesn't know what to do within these situations of figuring out these high-scoring offenses that they just like Kobe Coburn and Io DeSumo yesterday, or a Luka Garza team a few days ago, or a Michigan team in general. I don't know what to do with that because I think the communication thing is what's bothering me because you see after some plays like EJ just looks so frustrated. You got to think, is that on them? Is that on the coaches? Is that just like someone didn't move right at the exact timing? So I think the defense is where I think people need to start like looking. That could be the cause of concern. And the communication, I think, is the biggest thing at the moment because you could just tell that they don't look right now. And I also think it's just, I think the gas thing was a little bit into play and during that Iowa game. They just didn't look at the same speed as them, especially like I could think of Justin Lawrence. I remember at one point he was just hands on his sides, looked gassed at one point. I was thinking to myself, I don't think they're keeping up with these guys, and that's what the result was, and it was not a great time for Ohio State.
You mentioned 3 starters being in double digits on Saturday. EJ Liddell started out real slowly and then exploded in the second half and finished with 19 points. Dwayne Washington ended up with 15, but it was on just for 6 for 18 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3. That's, that is not 15 points is fine, but, that was not what you're used to seeing out of Dwayne Washington from the field. They were just 2 for their last 13 from the field. That's a big problem. If they were up by 4, I think, with 2-3 minutes left, and then just couldn't get the ball in the bucket after that. I think that has to be a concern if those shots aren't falling, because I think the big issue you may see with this team is that they don't have a ton of other ways to win. And you mentioned earlier, there's only really 2 things to be concerned with: the offense and the defense. offense and the buckets aren't falling on that end of the floor, this is not a team that is going to lock you down on defense and win a low scoring game. I mean, is that a reasonable concern to have at this point?
Oh, I totally agree, especially because I think we talked about a few shows ago how the offense was looking great and the defense is where we need help on. If the offense isn't going the way that it went for Ohio State most of the season, then this is not going to be a very good team when it comes to a postseason run potentially, because Ohio State was in top 5 in offensive efficiency this year for most of the season. The KenPom rankings, they look great in it. They were just destroying the offense, lighting up threes. We saw Justin Arns was one of the highest three-point shooters in Ohio State history at one time. DJ Walker was looking great. Dwayne was looking great. EJ was looking unreal. Kyle Young was even adding some double-doubles at times. So I think the fact that Ohio State's scoring is not where it was at times is concerning, but also you have to think about these teams that they're playing against definitely are studying, definitely are seeing where their weaknesses are, and these teams are very defensive heavy as well. Illinois is very good. Michigan's very good. Iowa's not so good, but they were able to use their offense to go to beat Ohio State, obviously, and we got to see that. So I think the offense, it's got to be a disciplined thing for at least me. They're chucking out some threes at points that I just don't think are the best shots, and it looks like sometimes they're just ruining the plays that Coach Holtmann tells the offense to run immediately. It's just Dwayne or CJ just chucking up a three, and I don't think it's the best shot. So shooting, they need to nail this down the next few weeks because it's going to not be a great time for them in the postseason if they don't get this working.
I think there are a lot of Ohio State fans right now who are feeling pretty disappointed with the way this season has played out. And that's a little bit of an issue with sequencing, where if you had some of these exact same losses and you had them in January and February, and, more recently, instead of 4 straight losses, those had happened earlier in the year. And now it's like, oh, they've beaten Penn State and Maryland and Northwestern in the last week. I think everyone would probably be feeling a little bit better, but just the way this has played out, where they just rocketed up and they're like a number 3, number 4 team in the country, and now they've kind of backslid a little bit since then, has probably changed the view of, changed people's expectations and changed the view of what this team is and what the season could be. But, I definitely understand that the trend recently has not been great, but I mean, this is still probably way ahead of where most people predicted them to be at the start of the year, though, right?
Yeah, definitely. I came into the season expecting Ohio State to be an 11-9, 10-10 type of team in the conference this year. I did not expect that Ohio State was going to go out and kind of beat some teams on the road, especially that Illinois win in the beginning of the year, Wisconsin on the road as well, Rutgers on the road. Now, that road game win streak was pretty impressive. I was like, whoa, where did this come from? I think having the addition of Seth Towns coming at one point, losing Jimmy Sotos was not great. But this Ohio State team at one point was very, very good. And I think Buckeye fans got a little too excited, / they had a lot going for them and they were expecting this to continue. But as I had a feeling that this was not going to continue, especially in just such a great conference, and the competition is well above any other conference in the country. So coming into the season, the expectations were not super high. I think we talked before the show. 4 to 5 seed was the reasonable range that I believe this team was going to be capable of. I thought they were very similar last year coming in, especially with no more Caleb Wesson. So now we're going to see more Dwayne Washington, EJ Liddell take over that role together as a duo more than anything. Still have CJ and Kyle Young down there as a presence, and adding some Musa Jallo, some Seth Towns, and some other guard play. So coming into the season, I didn't know what to expect at the same time, because Ohio State did have a lot of new players, a lot of new faces, and a lot of faces that also left. Luther Muhammad left last year, and a lot of other guys as well, Alonzo Gaffney. So this is a new team that Ohio State fans should be excited about, but at the same time, they are very surprised, which makes sense. So coming into this postseason, I'm expecting it to go back to the way that I was expecting coming to the season.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned expecting potentially like a 4 or 5 kind of seed going into the year. Right now, as of late on Sunday, CBS and ESPN both have the Buckeyes still as a 2 seed for the NCAA tournament in their various bracketology projections. CBS has them in Baylor's region. ESPN has them in a region with Gonzaga as the top seed. And, my thinking going into the Big Ten tournament, based on the fact that they typically don't seem to take the Big Ten championship game into real consideration unless it's very early in the tournament, the year that Illinois was an 11 seed and made the championship, and they had to have like a separate bracket for if Illinois wins, then they're in the field, and if they don't, then they're out. Outside of that kind of thing, the history sort of indicates they're not really going to take that championship game into that much account. So my thinking is that, you're probably not going to earn your way back up to the one line at this point, but, Ohio State could at least potentially get themselves up a few lines on the S curve and have someone more like Illinois as the number one in their region rather than Gonzaga, Baylor. I mean, those are teams Ohio State would probably prefer not to see until the Final Four. So, I mean, is that fair? Is that a realistic expectation for the potential, what they could potentially earn this week with a good performance in Indianapolis?
I definitely think it's realistic at this point. I don't see them going to a one seed at any point, at any chance, even if they make the championship. You're right. The tournament has been set by the committee at that point because the CBS selection shows right after the Big Ten championship game, same channel. So they're really just ready to release the graphics to the public. I believe Ohio State, I totally agree with you. They can move up the S curve, win that Purdue game, and then potentially win 1 to 2 more games. That will settle them into a non-Gonzaga, non-Michigan region and have a better chance against Baylor potentially or Illinois. I do think Ohio State 2 to 3 seed is where they're going to fit. I think they're going to stay at 2 because the committee has really liked them this year. And I think you also see with the bracketologists, they obviously know what they're doing. They've been doing this for a while. Joe Lenardi, he wouldn't just put Ohio State at 2 seed if he didn't think that they were capable / the committee would view them that way. I think the quad one wins are the biggest thing that the committee is going to take into account before the postseason starts or the conference tournament, because Ohio State did have so many impressive wins this year, and people can't take that away from them, especially those 2 wins against Rutgers, on the road against Wisconsin, on the road against Illinois, a close game against Michigan. They played some outstanding competition this year, and they've kept themselves within the Big Ten as a 5 seed is very impressive. Yeah, those Purdue losses and that Northwestern loss will bite them behind, but this team is still capable of being a 2 or 3 seed. I don't see them slipping any farther than that at all.
Yeah, you don't have to go back that far. You go back to that Michigan game, and it's like you watch them go toe to toe against one of, if not potentially the best team in the country. And it's like, if those shots are falling, this team could beat just about anyone in the country. And if the shots are not falling, like, it could be an early out. It is going to be a really, really interesting next couple weeks for this program to see what they can do. Another interesting program to watch on the Ohio State campus right now is the men's lacrosse program. They came ranked in the top 10 in the country. They've lost 2 of their first 3 games, though, and you got a chance to cover the team. You are one of the very, very few people that actually got to watch this team because they have not been on TV yet. So you have actually gotten to see them in person. So how big a concern is that slow start for the men's lacrosse team? Because, I mean, coming in with a top 10 record, the Big Ten is obviously a very strong league there. But, so how big a concern is that that slow start as far as what you've seen?
It doesn't concern me that much because it doesn't surprise me at the same time. I think this is where Ohio State kind of left off after last year with Coach Myers and a lot of Ohio State fans. One of my dad's good friends was a player here at Ohio State back in the 90s, but he's pretty involved with the program, and it sounds kind of like Coach Myers is not potentially the fit for this program and that they have so much talent out there, but they don't really know how to utilize it. Yes, they have a young goalie, Skylar Wooland, right now, who's been facing a lot of shots, and they're facing some great competition. But it doesn't surprise me that Ohio State's kind of struggling at the moment. They have 3 All-Americans, and they're not able to put it all together. They have All-Americans on all facets of the field. They have Trey LeClaire, who's about to set the all-time Ohio State scoring record. He's 3 goals away from it at attack. At midfield, Ryan Tarafanko's defensive midi, who's really stepped up and helped the defense, another All-American. And then Justin Ignacio, our face-off guy, who won 17 of 29 this weekend, which is remarkable to think about. He's been the top ever since he came to college. So Ohio State, they do play Michigan this upcoming week. I do think that they can win this game and get back to 500. It's just the Big Ten is also so talented. They played Rutgers, who in my opinion is one of the best teams in the nation. They lost 22-12, which is a ridiculously high-scoring college lacrosse. The defense is the main point that Buckeye fans should be concerned about, / the team should be concerned about, because young goalie, the slides are not there for Ohio State, and that's where they kind of were like last year. They had a strong attack, strong offensive midfield, and that's where they do have it this year as well. So they are able to score. They're able to keep in the games, but their defense is not there.
Well, that'll be something to keep an eye on. And we're heading into all of a sudden a very busy sports time at Ohio State. Spring football coming up in about a week. Men's basketball is headed into the postseason. Baseball won 3 of 4 over the weekend. Softball's going. You've got women's hockey heading into the NCAA tournament now. I mean, there is a ton of stuff going on all across campus. You can find coverage of just about all of it at BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a wonderful team of insiders. We have Tony Girdham headed to Indianapolis this week to cover the Big Ten tournament. We have great team of recruiting analysts covering all the future Buckeyes, current Buckeyes. We got Kirk Barton, so we get past Buckeyes covered too. Like, I mean, I don't know. Unless there's a fourth phase of time that I'm not aware of, that'll do it. That'll cover everything around Ohio State athletics. So you can find all of that at buckeyescoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. And also, make sure, started plugging this, feel like this is something you guys should really pay attention to. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. You can find all of our podcasts there. You can also find interviews with players, coaches, football camp, recruiting stuff, interviews with recruits, all sorts of stuff. Basically, everything you could possibly want from Ohio State athletics is all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. And if you hit that subscribe button, that will give you a little pop-up notification on your phone every time you post something new. And if you see something you like, you can go, hey, I think I'm going to watch that. And then boom, it's right there. It could not be easier for you. All you have to do is go to youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop and hit subscribe. That'll do it for today. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.